Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Advisory Live, brought to you by Nasdaq IR Insight. I'm your host, Will Briganti, and I'm joined by Josh Ellman. Josh is a consumer and retail analyst with Nasdaq Advisory Services. Josh, it's great to have you back.
My pleasure.
So it's been about a month, and the last time you were on, we talked about the health of the consumer. Where are we at right now?
Yeah, so just to revisit that conversation, the consumer was feeling very confident. However, overall spending was tepid, with many prognosticators saying that the tepid spending was a result of lackluster wage growth. We recently received retail sales data for the month of July, which blew past expectations. Importantly, in that report, we also had the months of May and June revised higher for overall retail sales. As a result, many investors were thinking that retail spending has turned a corner. Interestingly, on top of the macro data, we've also just gone through, or mostly done with, the retail earnings cycle. And while there have been some tough reports out there, some of the more recent earnings have been much better than anticipated. So investor sentiment towards the consumer discretionary space has been shifting a little bit more bullish in the short term, albeit anecdotally, which is good news for the space. However, what we're seeing on our end is that investors are still being highly selective when it comes to allocating capital to the consumer discretionary space.
Okay, Josh, that's a great insight and overview. So what is your team looking at right now and in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, so right now is, it's a very quiet period of time, end of summer. Right, exactly. So we've just pretty much wrapped up earnings season for the consumer discretionary space, and you have people taking the last of summer vacations, right? From an economic standpoint, tomorrow we'll hear about the second reading for the second quarter GDP. On Thursday, we'll have information regarding July income and spending. And on Friday, we'll get that lovely behemoth, the employment situation for the month of August. So it's a pretty action-packed week in terms of economic data, but what I'm really looking forward to hearing and seeing is next month, when we'll start to get some anecdotal tidbits in terms of what's going on with the key back-to-school season. But there are a lot of macro concerns out there right now in the marketplace.
Tell me a little bit about some of those macro concerns. What's in your sort of lens right now?
Yeah, well, obviously you have Hurricane Harvey and the ramifications of that particular storm. Houston is the fourth most populous city in the country, right? And the impact from the fallout from that particular storm will be pretty significant when it comes to overall spending. And the storm, unfortunately, is not over. We also have an interesting backdrop in Washington. Right now, Congress is on their August recess. They'll come back and have to deal with a raising of the debt ceiling, as well as figuring out how to keep the government open with a spending plan. And so most pundits believe that both of those pieces of legislation will ultimately get done, but there are some doubters out there in the marketplace. So it likely will be a little bit, will be volatile for the month of September. And then also, too, you do have North Korea out there continuing to make headlines with some of their recent missile tests.
Sure, of course.
So in summation, the consumer spending environment does seem like it is picking up some steam, but we do have some macro risks in the foreseeable future. But I do think if we do get past the North Korea situation, maybe that simmers down and calms down a bit, and we get the legislation that will be passed in Washington regarding the debt ceiling and government's spending, then ultimately that will set up a nice backdrop for the rest of the year. And I think also if we start to see some traction in terms of the overall tax cut legislation, that will be an even bigger boon for the consumer discretionary space. So lot to watch for the rest of the year, but right now we can enjoy our summer, or at least try to, with some of the stuff that's going on in the world. But that's pretty much what I'm looking at today.
All right, Josh, thank you so much for that insight. We'll leave it there.
Yes, thank you.
All right, great. And maybe we'll hope to have you back once some of that back to schools consumer spending is published. It would be good to drill into that with you further.
That sounds good.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Josh Ellman, retail and consumer analyst at Nasdaq Advisory Services. For further information, follow us here at Nasdaq on Twitter, and you can always visit our corporate blog. That's at business.nasdaq.com. We'll be coming back to you live on Thursday. I'll be speaking to Masood Ghazi. We're going to drill into some of the U.S. equity markets and look at some of those names there. Until then, have a great day. Josh, thanks so much.
No problem.
All right.